name is Josh Geering. I'm a senior at the University of Kansas, and I'm double majoring in ceramics and environmental studies. I am researching local clays for their use in ceramic arts. And so I found two different clays that I'm using and blending together. One is a glacial clay from north of Lawrence near Perry Lake. It was deposited there roughly 2 million years ago. And the other clay is from the Dakota Formation that occurs in central Kansas, and that clay is roughly 100 million years old. I think using local clay is really important to me in my work because it grounds it regionally. Clays vary, like wild clays vary so much from region to region because different factors went into their making. This project started out with a lot of research. It started out last March, the March of 2020. I started doing some preliminary research. I just went down to a local creek and I started looking for clay, and that's really how I got started. That body didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to. It had a lot of limestone in it. Limestone pebbles are harmful in clay because after a certain temperature they turn into quicklime, and once they interact with water they expand and can crack the walls of your work. So I ended up going through the Kansas Geological Survey, and I found a glacial clay from up north, and I started testing that, and that seemed pretty viable to me. And then after I found that clay, I realized that I needed another clay to mix with it because it wasn't everything that I needed. And so I kept looking, and I actually ended up finding some geological surveys from the 1940s through the 1960s that were in a database on the Geological Survey website. And I found the region that those were from, and I located them. And so from the researching point, I then moved on to the processing stage. So essentially what I do is I blend the two clays together 50-50. I first slake them in water, and then I sieve them through a 60 mesh screen. And I chose that mesh size essentially because any limestone that's in the clay will become a part of the chemistry of the clay instead of staying as a whole piece and then popping out of the body later. So after it's sieved, then it's time to add a little bit of commercial dry ingredients to it. After the dry ingredients are added, I then put it into these drying racks that I've made. And the drying racks are pretty simple. It's just 2x4s with hardware cloth on them so that the clay can breathe. And that takes roughly 2 to 4 weeks for it to get to a point where I can throw pots with it. This project was funded by 2 research grants, one available through the Undergraduate Research Center and one through the School of the Arts. I've been working on this project at the KU Interdisciplinary Ceramics Research Center, or ICRC for short. And this area was procured by Marshall Maude, and it has been just amazing to have all sorts of space out here, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to work at this large of a scale. I have sourced roughly 10 tons of material, so that's 20,000 pounds, and I got all of this material in my last semester, and so I will be out here processing clay well into the summer. I'm very interested in environmentalism and doing what I can to stop or eliminate my carbon footprint in my art practice. And so a lot of what I do is based on that. I work from local materials, and I fire in wood kilns. I fire in wood kilns because they seem to make the most sense for my work, because the wood that we're using would otherwise be getting turned into mulch or just going to the landfill and slowly losing all of its carbon that way. I really love wood firing because it shows the effect of time on the work. It shows what it's been through, it shows a history of the process. And that's something that I really like to carry throughout my entire body of work. I try and show that through the marks that I make on the clay and through the firing as well. I can tell when I've made a pot that's successful if the surface and the form and the clay just really all jive together. Like if the throwing lines are just perfect and if the lip is intimate and makes you just want to bring it up to your mouth, and if the sandy nature of the clay is shown in the cutting of the foot. I think those are all the things that really make a piece feel successful to me. I make functional pottery because I really like the idea of being able to use what I make. And I really like the idea of other people being able to use what I make. And it brings me great joy when I see other people using pots that I've made. It really gives me a sense of pride.